Good afternoon. This is Attorney Taisha Elam. I'm counsel for Mr. Clifford Hall, the gentleman who was found in contempt and sentenced to 180 days in jail for overpaying his child support and spending too much time with his son. Now, many of you have called, have written, and asked, how could something like this happen? So I created this video to help you understand how it happened, legally why it happened, factually what happened, and most importantly, what you can do because it happened. What you all may not understand is that the law in Texas has recently changed. Originally, Texas Family Code Section 157.162D protected fathers like Mr. Hall. That statute provided that a father or paying obligor could not be held in contempt if on the day of the hearing they were able to prove that they were current on their child support. However, that statute was actually repealed this summer by our 83rd legislature. Now, a person may be held in contempt even if they're caught up at the time of the hearing. That is primarily why and how Mr. Hall was able to be sentenced to 6 months in jail despite being current on his child support. However, when I approached opposing counsel maintained, hey, that's great. He's all caught up, but I need my attorney's fees. And I asked, of course, what type of attorney's fees are you seeking? Well, opposing counsel was seeking $3,500 in attorney's fees. And I'm sorry, I hadn't charged Mr. Hall $3,500, so I certainly wasn't going to ask him to pay another attorney $3,500. So I insisted that her request was irrational. I'd even ask, what makes you believe that this judge or any judge will order $3,500 on a case that's come into compliance before the very first hearing? We have no other issues that aren't resolvable. Why do you think this judge would order $3,500 in attorney's fees? And that attorney looked me squarely in my eye and maintained that the judge would order such because she had just ordered $10,000 in attorney's fees on another case a couple weeks ago. So at that point, I realized this case wasn't going to settle. Mr. Hall's checks were inconsistent, the payments were fluctuating, and some people ask, well, why didn't he know his income was fluctuating? Well, sometimes he works overtime, so his income fluctuates. However, he had no idea the fluctuation was a result of the errors in withholding. So again, it led to a withholding error, which was not brought to his attention by his ex, not brought to his attention by his employer, not brought to his attention by opposing counsel. I assumed again the next setting this case would be resolved. Well, because Judge Millard was unavailable, the case was reset from June to July to August to September to October and wasn't heard until November. In the course of all these resets, guess what? The withholding error was continuing to occur. He was still getting behind. So guess what he did in October? He paid another $1,500 to catch it up. Now at that time, because of the holding error, he asked me, Ms. Elam, because they're being so inconsistent, can I just pay too much money? That way, there won't be any problems when we ultimately go to court. So Mr. Hall paid another $1,500 to make sure that the child support wasn't just caught up, but was overpaid by the time we went to court. However, on November 18th, when we went to court, the judge listened to all the evidence of the employer and the inconsistent withholding, the evidence of the Attorney General not sending the proper amount on the withholding notice, the evidence of Mr. Hall having been current for the past 4 years, the evidence of Mr. Hall being active in his child's life, the evidence of him consistently visiting his child and consistently paying his support. All that evidence was heard, and that judge found Mr. Hall in contempt for 180 days for failing to pay the proper amount of support, failing to surrender his child on the 28th of Christmas, and failing to pick his child up from the child's grandmother's house as opposed to picking the child up at 3 o'clock from school. Now you can imagine that would frustrate anyone. If I told you tomorrow to go to jail for 6 months because you did your job as a father, not just doing your job, but excessively doing your job, I'd imagine you'd be frustrated. What would you do? Possibly walk out of the courtroom? Well, that's what Mr. Hall did. Out of frustration, he walked out of the courtroom. Now, what you don't know is he didn't walk out irate. He didn't walk out yelling. He walked out so calmly and quietly, none of us noticed. So when we did notice, I walked outside of the courtroom and discovered Mr. Hall was in the hallway pacing, trying to understand how he could be found in contempt for failure to maintain payments that were beyond his control. Well, as his attorney, I tried to assure him, Mr. Hall, please don't be discouraged. I promise you this won't stand. The judge will be reasonable. Just come back inside the courtroom. This won't help the matter. Come back inside the courtroom. We can simply ask the mom to suspend the sentence. She has the power to tell the judge, you know what, Your Honor, I appreciate the 6 months, but let's suspend it. And if he doesn't catch up in the future, or if he fails to maintain the support in the future, he'll go straight to jail. I encourage my client to come inside believing that that would be the consequence and the result. So my client came back inside. He stood respectfully before the judge and listened to our debate over whether or not that sentence should be suspended. Well, unfortunately, when asked whether or not she'd be willing to suspend the sentence, Mr. Hall's ex said she wasn't prepared to comment at this time. So Mr. Hall would be remanded into custody immediately. Again, I began to go back and forth with the judge and opposing counsel. And again, Mr. Hall left so quietly and so respectfully. Again, we didn't notice. However, when we did notice and I went into the hallway, Mr. Hall was gone. Since that time, Mr. Hall has not seen his son. That was November 18th. He missed his son for Thanksgiving. He missed his son for Christmas. He missed seeing his son for New Year's. Why? Because there's a capias out for his arrest, because he is to surrender himself so he can begin serving his 180-day sentence. Now, do I encourage any client to disrespect the court and to walk out and storm out and not comply with the court order? Absolutely not. But I lack the power, family, community. I lack the power to encourage a man to walk before a judge and commit himself to 6 months in jail when he's done nothing wrong. I can't get him to do that. And unfortunately, it's difficult for anyone to get him to do that. However, in courage and strength, he's going to do that. And I appreciate your sincerity and your desire to help, but that also doesn't evoke change. What will evoke change is contacting our committee, our judiciary committee that is set up to handle matters like this. It is referred to as the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. I want you to go to their website, and there are forms that you can fill out if you would like to register a complaint against a judicial officer. That is the proper way to voice your opinion about your disapproval of this judge's decision. So I encourage you to go to the website, fill out the form, tell your neighbor, tell your friend, tell your parents. Even if you don't live in the state of Texas, they can hear your outrage. Your voice there will count. Innocent parents, innocent fathers are going to be hurt. And worst of all, innocent children. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, I want to help. Okay, I'm registering a complaint. It's great, but I want to help. I know he's got legal fees. I know he's going to have to post bond if he goes to jail. I want to help you all spread the word. I want to help financially. Well, to that I say thank you. And I tell you that there are many ways that you can help financially. You can go to Black United Fund of Texas, who's partnered with us to create the Drayton Hall Project. You can contact them. You can write them at the address on the bottom of the screen and write them, send in your donation. If you would like to use PayPal, you can send a PayPal payment to the Drayton Hall Project, again, at the address on the bottom of your screen. If you have any other questions, you're more than welcome to call my office. 713-LAWYER9. Really, really easy. Call my office, 713-LAWYER9. Please share this video. I am not trying to get a bunch of views, for the sake of generating any income. I really want your voice. Share it and tell a friend. Don't just watch it and act. Thank you.